Do you remember when in the House of Commons they keep repeating to Canadians that this carbon rebate is going to benefit you, that you're going to get more out of this tax than what you put in? Those are obvious lies, but they kept repeating those lies, hoping to manipulate people to continue on this charade. But some people are aware of this, and it's affecting a lot of people, including small businesses, ladies and gentlemen. Toronto Star pointing out that small businesses still being taxed on carbon rebates, the Federation says. So, not only are you getting taxed for the carbon pollution that supposedly is going to stop emissions, it hasn't. It hasn't even invested into green technology that they also promise. It's been a complete money grab for the parliament system. But you're also getting taxed on the rebates. So they're stealing your money, give you a small portion back, and then you have to pay for that small proportion to come back if you're a small business. And you wonder why it is so hard to be an entrepreneur, to start a small business in this country. And a lot of these small businesses are fleeing. They're saying, screw this, I'll go to America then. I'll start my business down there. I don't have time for this crap. So, small businesses across Canada are still being taxed on their carbon tax rebates, despite a commitment from the former finance minister that they would be tax free, says the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. So, small businesses across Canada are still being taxed on their carbon tax rebate, despite a commitment from the former finance minister that they would be tax free, says the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. The business group says it has been informed by the Canadian Revenue Agency that the rebate is considered government assistance to taxpayers that is subject to an income tax. Well, funny how they left that part out in the House of Commons. Hey, you gotta be supportive of this because more Canadians are gonna benefit from this carbon tax. Oh, did we forget to mention that because of this loophole, you're getting taxed on a rebate? And again, none of that money actually goes into investing in the environment. None of it. Not a single penny. The Federation says the CRA also told that the former finance minister, Chrystia Freeland's announcement last year that the rebate will be tax-free and the fall economic statement that made a similar commitment were not accompanied by proposed legislative amendments. The prorogation of Parliament is not making the situation any easier, says FIB President and CEO Dan Kelly, as the only new legislation presented in Parliament can override this decision. So they're not returning back to office. They still have not. And it won't be till March 24th. So by next month, that possibly this will be addressed. Meanwhile, small businesses are still crumbling by mass inflation, by carbon taxes, by how much the pandemic has screwed over business. 7 out of 10 in Toronto alone were forced to shut down and never reopen. 7 in 10 just in Toronto. It's just, It's just the most unhelpful time to provide even more tax uncertainty at a time when businesses are scrambling to deal with the potential tariff issue, and so that makes this doubly bad, Kelly said. Businesses have finally received charity on the capital gains front, with the inclusion rate increase being pushed back, only to have confusion about the carbon tax rebate come up after 5 years of waiting for it to kick in, Kelly said. It really has eroded a lot of trust over the carbon tax, said Kelly, who previously told the Canadian press that 83% of the group's 97,000 members want the carbon price to be repealed. 83% of small businesses want to dump the carbon tax. And idiots like Mark Carney, who are corrupted career criminals who capitalize off of the carbon taxes, who use it to oppress Canadians while flourishing over overseas foreign oil investments, is laughing about how he's going to cancel the carbon tax and put a carbon tariff on. What does that mean? It means that you're still going to be charged the carbon tax, but it's just not going to be called a carbon tax on consumers. It's a gimmick. It's a gimmick. And majority of Canadians don't want this to even happen. Even at the start of mentioning carbon taxes and carbon pricing, Canadians were aware how much of a scheme this was. That, we're gonna tax it to the big polluters. That's called for a domino effect that eventually affects you. Because it affects the manufacturer, it affects the supplier, it affects the transport, it affects department stores, grocery stores, your food prices go up, everything goes up. And that cost comes down to you. Just like this new carbon tariff initiative. That, we're only going to do it to the Americans and other countries that don't commit to a carbon tax. Going to affect you. The Canada carbon rebate for small businesses was a measure introduced in Budget 2024 in which $2.5 billion of carbon price revenue would be paid back to some 600,000 small and medium-sized businesses. In October, the Finance Department said the government planned to return a portion of the fuel charge proceeds from 2019-2020 through 2023-2024 to businesses by the end of the year. After confusion over whether or not the rebate would be taxed and years of delays, the CFIB says rebates were paid in December. The consumers had their rebate as soon as the carbon tax went into place in 2019, but it took Ottawa 5 straight years to figure out how to rebate those dollars back into businesses that they had promised to them, Kelly said. Even now, after the checks have been sent out, it is taxable, according to the CRA. Government will have to retroactively change legislation if they want to remove the tax from this. And I can tell you they won't. I can tell you they won't. They did this intentionally. That this idea that you pay into the carbon taxation, that somehow this is going to be investment into helping climate change and dealing with it, it's all a complete farce. It's all a complete farce. The people that are screaming the loudest for environmental change and climate policy are the same people that are demonizing farmers, that are not replanting trees, that are not investing in hemp manufacturing, and are also the ones that are using private jets and polluting overseas, and extraordinary military power that's also causing pollutants into the air. And who does this hurt the most? It hurts us. We don't get a say in this. They lecture us, they scold us for using the wrong kitchen appliances, that you can't have a gas-powered lawnmower, that you can't drive from place to place. Because it's all about control. It's all about seizing assets and control over your day-to-day life. And they're cracking down on small businesses by not only extorting them, but this taxation that affects a huge amount of small businesses, especially at a time that they dealt with the pandemic and they got screwed over by that. But they're also getting taxed for getting the money back from that tax. This is an ultimate scheme. And they did this intentionally because they knew about this. They know about this. They know what's happening. And yet they still won't do anything about it. If it was such a concern for small businesses, if they really gave a damn about Team Canada and Canadian businesses and manufacturers, they'd be going back to the House of Commons in an instant to deal with this. But they won't. They won't. They never will. They will never deal with this head on because they found the ultimate scheme to crush down on small businesses and small entrepreneurs to flourish the people like Mark Carney with Brookfield Management Assessment and major large businesses that could just buy carbon credits. Oh, why would I decrease pollution when I could just pay the government more to shut them up? What does that have to do with the environment then? What does that have to do with pollution? If people don't want to cut down pollution and can just buy carbon credits, then what's the point of this? What is the point of a carbon tax? What is the point of trying to put political leverage on cutting down emissions? It's all a giant ass scam. And I'm not saying that climate change isn't real. I'm saying that the initiatives being proposed by certain people are not the solution. That people like Bill Gates and Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau, anyone at the Davos conventions, Greta Thunberg, Al Gore, any of these nefarious ghouls that pretend to propose a solution to deal with environmental impacts are the nefarious liars themselves. Because if they actually gave a damn about the climate and policy and science, they'd be self-sacrificing their assets. They wouldn't be trouting around on private jets. Justin Trudeau wouldn't need 7 motorcades to go to a public event. Al Gore wouldn't be going to Davos every single year and instead doing a Zoom call. Bill Gates wouldn't make a statement about cutting down trees and burying them to combat climate change. They wouldn't be demonizing farmers, the oldest occupation on the face of the earth. That actually benefits nature because farmers and agriculture actually involves nature directly. And they know a thing or two about carbon. They know a thing or two about pollution. And what agriculturalists and naturalists understand is that the more plants, the more trees, the more crops, the more vegetation you put on this planet helps regurgitate that carbon dioxide into oxygen. That's basic biology. Basic biology. And even NASA did a study, conclusive study, that showed that all this extra carbon in the atmosphere that they're trying to capture actually benefits vegetation. But all this is to initialize control, force you down this self-destructive path so that they can flourish with their capitalization off of pretending to be environmentalists, while you peasants, you plebes, you bunch of serfs down at the bottom have to suffer. You have to buy electric vehicles. You can't use your gas lawnmower. You have to go and eat bugs. Because cows and chickens and other vegetables are apparently so dangerous to the climate. But yet, someone like Mark Carney or Bill Gates can go overseas and eat steak tartare. So, obviously, they're not going to do anything about this. Obviously, this is a scam. And it's just another example of how our government here in Canada, our sinister government, I can't even say it's incompetence anymore, because they did this deliberately. Our sinister government is a threat to our Canadian sovereignty, our society. And this is why people are so angered at Justin Trudeau. They're so angered at the situation we're in, and why so many people that are thinking of starting a small business, are becoming entrepreneurs, or want to flourish themselves, are ditching Canada. A lot of them are going to the United States or going elsewhere because of stupid notions like this that could be an easy resolve, but they chose not to purposely undermine and oppress you.